taboo topics and often unpopular watch opinions. My name is Schmitz, and as always, I'm joined by my good buddy. You guys know him, you love him, Mr. Bro Dinky. Bro, what's up?
What's up, bud? So another week in the books here. That's two in a row. We call that a streak where I'm from. All good. Had a good weekend. Back to work today. Had an interesting day. Had one of those days. I don't know if you ever had one of these where, and these are adults you're dealing with, and I'm not talking about customers. I'm talking about people you work with, where you feel like you have to and I'm just going to air quote this because it'll make sense with what people know I do for a living, but where you almost feel like you have to chew their food for them, where you're like, I cannot make this any easier for you, but I have to hold your hand through this.
Yes.
And
yes.
it's just that was like the day I had where I'm just like, my eyeballs are hitting the back of my skull at this point, and I don't know what else to do. So
yeah, you're at that point where you're like, how have you made it this far
in life? Not in this industry, not in this job. How have you made it this far in life? You know what I mean? I'm like, this is
yes.
it's like the game Lemmings. Like something should have just took you out by accident at some point. But
oh my God, that's an old reference. I have not
Lemmings,
heard
dude,
that in a long time,
yeah,
dude.
Lemmings is a classic for all you kiddos out there. If you don't know Lemmings, go check that out. Download an NES emulator and go play the original. Don't play like the newer ones. Play the original where you have to they blow themselves up and everything. It's a good time. Lemmings,
Oh
hell
my
yeah.
gosh, yes.
But it was that kind of day, and I was just like, damn, I really just want to get out of here and actually do something I want to do. I was sitting at my desk looking at things to talk about today.
I should be doing so many other things besides this, and I just can't right now.
Yeah. So
yes, I've had those days, and they suck.
It is what it is. But that was my
man.
day. It's over now. It's fine. I'm not bitter about it. But that's kind of it. We got some cool watch to talk about today. We have a funny topic, I think. But aside from that, everything's good. How about you?
Good, man. Enjoying still being at home before things get crazy with travel and things like that. So I'll probably start recording on the road again at some point here in the future. But it's been good, man. Everything is finally settling in before the new year really kicks off. And we're only just a few short months away before it gets into peak watch season. So that's also very exciting.
Yeah, that should be a good time. Although this year, we're going to talk about this a little later. I think it might be a little bit different this year.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll save that for topic. But yeah, I having talked with you offline about it, I think you might be onto something.
Ding it.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, we will. But all right, we'll do the usual. We'll get the newer stuff out of the way, the new and neat things. All right, so I guess we'll start with the Nevada. So Nevada has an Antarctic diver out in green. It's a little bit different than your traditional diver, I would say. It's certainly something that I wouldn't anticipate. I think that the markers throw me certainly, but if you've seen their Antarctic diver, this is a little different. It's got a black bezel, it's got a green dial, it's got markers that all orient horizontally around the dial. They don't point towards the middle. Typically, you have sort of that radial symmetry from the middle of the dial going on. These are all oriented horizontally, which is a little throwing at first, but they make it kind of make sense at the 6 and the 12 by making it like almost a double index.
Yeah.
And they somehow make it work. Like I actually do like this. I think it's because they put the sort of yellowish loom on it.
Yeah, and if you think about stuff like their spider dials, like you want to talk about funky hour marker placement. You remember the spider dial, right?
Yes, of course.
I mean, and it has the lines that look like a spider. Like it looks insane. This is kind of like one of those things where they're like, all right, guys, we're gonna do a rail of coke, and it's like, what are we gonna make? And they're like, let's just put everything sideways. You know what I mean? Like it's funky. It's very late '60s, early '70s. It's cool. I think so, and it is a lot more funky of a design in comparison to the first Antarctic diver re-release that we got in 23.
Right.
Which is like the stark black one, right? This one that comes in two flavors too, because you get a no date version or you can get a date version with a frame date window, which again, for all you date window Nazis out there, it looks very symmetrical. It's nice. At 3:00. It's nice. It's not an odd 4:30 date or anything insane, but nice looking watch. And I noticed a different logo. This has a different logo than the other Nevada Antarctic diver.
Yeah, it almost looks like the lip logo.
It does, right? It's got kind of like this.
What was that? It was like paperclip, the clippy guy.
It
from
looks kind of like the
Microsoft. Remember
paperclip,
that
but
guy?
it reminds me of Snake. If you remember
Oh yeah, yeah.
you know what I
You
mean?
eat yourself and you die. Yep. Yeah,
Exactly.
there's another
Yeah.
throwback for you kids. If you ever had a
Yeah.
Nokia cell phone,
They
um,
didn't. They
oh, you,
didn't. Come
yeah,
on.
no, they didn't. But I mean, listen, that was the first phone I had text messaging on, where you had to push the buttons 15 times just to get to the next letter. It had two games. It had Snake, and it had I can't remember what the second one was. That was the only one I used to go with, but it had Snake, and it was a brick. You could kill somebody with it. It was also
Yeah.
good for self defense, which was nice.
And everyone had one.
Everybody had one.
You were important if you had a Nokia. Like that was like the iPhone of the day. Did you ever hear that story about this guy who like I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard like this anecdotal story of this guy who lost his like Nokia brick phone like in the snow, like in a state where it snows or something like that, and he couldn't find it because it was like buried in snow, right? And then it thawed during the spring, and he found it, plugged it in, and it like charged, like it started working
I
again.
wouldn't doubt it. I mean, they were bulletproof.
They were really bulletproof. That was back when tech was like, yeah, you might have this for 50 years. We don't know. It could be 3, it could be 50. We're just gonna make it last forever.
And hey,
Uh,
you can have a ringtone. That was the first ringtone phone. I remember I had Knight Rider. I thought I was the biggest pimp in the world.
Wasn't it the ringtone for the Nokia?
Yeah, that was it. That was it. Made famous by was it in Jurassic Park, right? Where it's going off. They're trying to shut it up.
Maybe,
I think it's in
maybe,
Jurassic Park.
maybe. I remember it from Love Actually. I know that's kind of a funny reference, but it's one of my favorite movies related to Christmas. So yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. But yeah,
I know. I'm not supposed to like that movie, but I actually do like that movie. So
I was trying to remember which one it was, but it's what it's. I remember it now. It's like the guy's recording the song and he can't get it right. That one, right?
yes,
Starts off.
exactly.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
movie.
I do
That's the movie.
remember.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Wait, how do we get from Nokia to here? Oh,
I don't know.
Snake. Yes, that's
Snake, yes.
right.
The tangents are wild.
That's it.
2025, lots of tangents.
Yeah, yeah. But overall, I think it's a cool watch. I like the black tropic on it. It meshes well with the whole look. You know, the black, the green,
Yeah,
the
it's
yellow.
a sick watch.
It is. It's pretty nice. I would definitely consider picking one of these up, especially because it's always priced right. I think this thing is like $855 or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, even if you go on the Nevada website, which this is my only complaint about this watch, Nevada, please update your website when
No
you
watch
drop new
websites.
stuff.
No watch websites are good. They all suck.
I know. I know they do.
It's 2025, and I'm in the belief that I think they just try to do this on purpose. I think if you try to keep like the Hodinkis and people alive, man, like they're like, all right, if our websites suck, then these blogs can never go out of business because people will just skip over us.
I mean that is certainly an evil maniacal way of looking at it. But my statement here is Nevada, this isn't the first time I've seen a release come out, but I have not seen it anywhere logically indicated on your website.
Good.
I don't know how to find it. I had to literally type in Nevada Antarctic Diver Green. You sent me the picture from Monochrome, so I typed in Monochrome, and that's what came up. Like that's it. That's how I found it. I couldn't even find it on the website. I spent 10 minutes looking for it, and I feel really bad about how much time I spent trying to find it. And I'm like, it's got to be here in the section listed Antarctic Diver, and it's not. So I don't know what to tell you, but it's not there. It's not on the website, not on the landing page. So please, 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 if you're going to launch a product, make sure we can go and cross-reference information about it. Because here's the other flip side. Not all the blogs report it correctly. Not saying that that's what happened here, but it has happened before in the past. So I like to have the information directly from the source.
It's a good point. That's a good point.
We're not in the business of misinformation, bro.
Miss or dis, and I don't know the difference anymore.
It doesn't matter. It's all stupid. But we're here to educate. We're here to educate.
All right. Next, we got a Speedmaster moon phase in meteorite.
I know
you're probably excited about this one. I mean, this is a good looking watch. I got to say.
It is a good looking watch.
It's not a cheap watch, but it's a good looking watch.
Look, the days of Omega watches being your $2,500 bargain bin from eBay, or
what a great time.
I mean, yeah, but that's the thing is those times came and everyone slept on it then anyway too. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You guys know I'm biased about this watch. It's sick. It's a new meteorite watch. The dial's made of meteorite. It is basically a 2 sub-dial chronograph with a moon phase complication at 6 o'clock. This is a twin hemisphere moon phase. So it'll
Oh, that's
track
neat.
accurately the lunar cycle in both the northern and southern hemispheres at the same time, which is pretty cool. And it's also a twin meteorite watch, which I don't know if everyone knows that, but the dial is made out of the same meteorite we saw on the constellations that came out last year. This Mignona Lusta meteorite, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's a Swedish meteorite, was discovered in 1906. It's a type of siderite, so it's like an iron composed meteorite. Very, very cool. But it has that really cool kind of like structural pattern that you see that everyone loves with meteorite. But the moons on the moon phase disk itself are made out of lunar meteorite,
Oh,
which
that's neat.
means the moons are actually the moon rock from the moon, which is even cooler to me. So both meteorites are approximately 4.5-ish billion years old, according to Google. So yeah, you've got a piece of ancient space on your wrist, and every meteorite will be unique and different,
That's neat. I like
which is
that.
pretty cool. Also, the last little Easter egg per Omega's website is the star pattern that you see on the moon phase disk is actually the star pattern that was seen during the Apollo 11 missions in 1969. So, like the placement of the stars in the sky is how the astronauts would have viewed it from the moon
Oh, okay.
during Apollo 11,
That's cool.
which is also pretty freaking cool. And I don't even know how you find that or like how you calculate that, but hey, you know what? That's pretty sick.
Yeah, this shade of black meteorite is really something, I gotta
It's
say.
cool, man. It's cool. I mean, both versions I like. I mean, I have too many black dials in my collection right now, so I'm partial to the silver and blue. But I know if you're going for more of like the one and done, I'm gonna wear this watch till the end of time to the day I die, then the black one is definitely the safer bet.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that a lot. Yeah, and it's
But
on the
it's
newer
thin,
bracelet
man,
too, which is sweet.
and it's thin. It's
Yeah, which
thin.
is also
Thir-
cool because
13.6, which is insane for this type of complication in a Speedmaster, which is nice.
yeah,
It is nice. So, for all you haters out there about the thickness, it's 43 millimeter. It's a little wider, but you know, a moon watch is 42, so what's one more millimeter between friends? And 13.6, I think is the specs for the thickness, if I'm not mistaken. But pretty good, pretty good. So I like it. I'm here for it.
yeah, it's very handsome.
Yeah, I know. Very, very pretty. If only I had $17,100 burning a
Yeah.
hole in my pocket.
Hey, if you bought Trump coin, maybe you did.
Yeah, you know, didn't even know that was a thing. Probably would have bought it, and I'd probably be having a very different conversation right now. So
I'm
yeah, I just
rich,
went to like
bitch.
trillions of dollars overnight. It's fine. So whatever. It's no big deal. Missed out on that one. I was over here blowing my whole savings on the Hawk Tua coin.
Nah, yeah, you got rugged, as the kids
Got
say.
rugged, you know.
Rugged. All right. Oris putting out some more watches, newer, older, or indifferent.
That's the best way to put it, I guess.
Yeah, I think so, right? So they put out a Diver 65 60th anniversary edition. And it's funny because we always talk about this one, even though it's not the one that ever comes out, because this is the sort of old school Art Deco Diver 65 that you actually own the previous generation of. So we do talk about this one every once in a while. Now, the interesting part about it is that the new one is not really any different from the one that you also own.
Exactly. This is
Uh,
kind of sad. I'm not gonna lie.
I saw that this guy came out again, and I was like, oh, they're probably gonna put the caliber 400 in it, and do all these fancy updates. And I'm like, I I don't know. I there's not much here.
Yeah, there's not, unfortunately. And for those of you that were expecting something really revolutionary about this, because I mean, we talked about this kind of at the end of last year. It's like, what are they doing? What is Oris kind of going into? And there was really nothing that I don't know. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. But I will say this watch is kind of a mail it in for me because it's 40 millimeters. This is the 60th anniversary. So I have the version from the 50th anniversary, which came out in 2015, by the way. And it's the same watch. It's literally the same watch.
Minus, I think this doesn't have a date.
It does not have a date, and the text on the dial where it says Oris waterproof. On my version, the font of Oris is in the older script, but it says automatic instead of waterproof. Then at the bottom, it says anti-shock 26 joules, which mine says water resistant 10 bar 100 meters. So, okay, it's different, but the same style of dial, same set of hands. It has the funky 12369. The bezel's almost identical, except mine has a triangle at 12 as opposed to just the dot. So mine
Okay.
has a triangle and a dot, which arguably is actually more practical.
Yeah, agreed.
But the movement is exactly the same. It's the caliber 733. It's an Oris caliber, which is basically a Sellita SW200. And the new version is the caliber 733-1, which is the same movement, just no date. And now it's more expensive. So if I'm saying to everyone out there, if you like this watch and you want to get your hands on it, save yourself the $2,500 and just go buy the one from 2015. They're always trading for realistically around $800 to $1,000 on the secondary market. It's the same movement. It's the same type of styling. It's arguably more functional with the date. I like the release, but I mean, have it this watch. Like, why would I ever go buy the other one?
Yeah, now that again, rugged.
It's the only way I can say it. And it's almost like they're like, well, 10 years is long enough that maybe everyone forgot we used to make this watch. It's kind of the way that it feels.
I do feel like some brands do that where they're like, do you remember this? And you're like, yeah, I lived through it not that long ago. I do remember this.
I mean, like if you're new to watches, cool, great, but this watch is $2,500. The original retail price of the one that I have from 2015 was 1,600 euro, which is just over $1,600 US retail. So you're talking almost $1,000 more for the new one over 10 years. Okay, you could probably argue that maybe that's due to inflation, manufacturing, all that stuff, whatever. But when I'm looking at this watch and seeing it in my hand right now with my version, comparatively to the version that is on the website right now, I don't see any visible difference. And if you like the styling of this watch, just go buy the old one because they're plentiful and they were not limited edition watches.
Yeah, I don't really know what else to say. It's kind of a head scratcher. But I went into it assuming it was just like upgrade this, upgrade that,
and that would have made sense.
Listen, I'm all for you want to make something that looks the same, but you want to just bring it up and scale
totally
a little
agree.
bit. I'm
totally
all
agree.
for it. This was not that.
It's not, but I think the only thing that is kind of reassuring is that on the website it still says Divers 65. So I'm wondering if now they're going to separate it out where it's the Divers and then Divers 65. Like you have the new version that we saw and we talked about a few episodes back, the gray, the blue, the black or whatever that they came out with, kind of like retro divers, but they're modern. And then you have this new Diver 65, which is a return to the old style, but it's still listed as the 65 line, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So I'm wondering if they're going to keep the 65 collection in their catalog, but still slightly updated over time.
Well, I guess we'll find out. Other Oris stuff that dropped, there's an 88-piece LE of the ProPilot X for the Year of the Snake on the lunar calendar this year.
Yay.
It's a ProPilot X, and the inner, I don't know what you'd even call it. It's not really I guess it's the dial.
Yeah.
And the chapter ring. I mean, there's not much of it because it's a skeletonized watch, but what's there of the dials in teal. And I think the PR hand has a little snaky look to it.
Yeah. It's the hand is a little gold and looks kind of like a snake.
Yeah. So cool. That's what it is.
Stop it! You're killing him.
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing revolutionary. It's just. I was talking to you about this before the show. They're kind of beating this one into the ground, and I'm not really sure why. Between Miss Piggy and Kermit the Frog, and listen, the original one came out. It was kind of something new and interesting
because the Yankees coach wore it, right?
Well, right. So Aaron Boone's got it, but also it was something sort of.
It was different.
It was different for them, right? It was something. It was a little more technological, right? It was titanium. It was 10-day. It was all this stuff. You were like, oh, okay, they're really trying to get out there. But like now, it's here, and we've seen it, and we've seen a few different renditions of it, and
this is ultimately, in my opinion, the problem with trying to go futuristic. We
Yeah,
talked
I
about
get
this
that.
years ago, but and that's kind of this phenomenon. It's like, what's gonna be cool 5, 6 years from now? Like this to me is already one of those watches that is aged and not in a good way. Like it's not like it's technologically inferior or not functional or anything like those things aside. It's an awesome watch. It's a 10-day power reserve, in-house movement, all the cool stuff. But like, are you gonna wear this watch forever? Or is it just gonna be a watch you wear for like 6 months to a year and you're just like, you know what? My loss is your gain. You know what I mean? Like that's just kind of be the way it is. And I think this is one of the, especially when you start doing like limited editions like this, like you're talking with for a very niche person, like very niche audience. I mean, again, it's only 88 pieces, but in my opinion, that's 88 too many. That silly, 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 silly.
Yeah, when you talk about the futuristic thing, I always think about here's another throwback: the movie Demolition Man. You know the
Mm-hmm.
one where Taco Bell is the only restaurant left after the giant earthquake. But like if you ever watch that movie, like it's in like not it's made in the 90s and
Yeah.
it's set for yeah,
Isn't it
honestly,
set like now?
it's
Like in,
probably about now.
yeah.
But so like you see what their interpretation of futuristic is, and that's
Yeah.
what this is. Like
Yeah.
this is something that they would be wearing,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
The three seashell game. But but this is what I think of because you watch movies like that or like Time Cop. I think is also
Yeah.
set like now,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
where you have to go back in time and fight people and do splits on countertops and stuff. But it's those futuristic interpretations. I feel like this is what they would have given us, and they'd be like, "This is what we're going to be wearing in 2025 with the flying cars and here we are." And we have self driving cars that sometimes hit people and they could park
Or or
themselves.
per, or lock you inside.
Right. So there's that, and we have you can we'll soon be able to get a car to Uber Eats something without a driver in it, which will be neat. But it's still a work in progress. But here we are. I mean, we still don't. This is still not it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That
Yeah. Yeah.
at the end of the day, this is not where we're at, and
I
I don't
agree.
know if we will ever be there. So that again, that's a problem with going futuristic, with going with a lot of these super. I don't you call them. I mean, I don't want to keep using the word futuristic, but that sort of
That's what it
forward
is.
leaning look. I
It's
mean,
it's
even
it's exactly what it is.
make fun
It's
of
it
like the
is
Cybertruck
futuristic.
for the same reason, right? Like, is this futuristic or is this just odd? I don't know, but
Like I said, I mean, and I've been saying it for years on a completely unrelated, I should say not unrelated, but an anecdotal thing. It's like I feel the same way about the Octo, like the Bulgari, right? Like, is that going to be the thing 10 years from now? I don't know. It's hot right now because they make it ultra thin and everything, but this is that same kind of thing. It's futuristic, it's edgy, it's avant garde, but it's like, is that forever? That still remains to be seen. We'll find out.
yeah, agreed. All right, moving along, we have a Bulova put out their sort of rendition of a hybrid ceramic watch. We'll call it. That's what they call it.
Mhm.
So it's sort of in that realm of entry level, somewhat plasticky composite material watch. So you're getting sort of
Mhm.
a moon swatch, but in their take, Bulova, they do the snorkel. They're into dive watches very heavily. So this is their endeavor into that entry level. So it's a quartz watch. You get that hybrid composite, quote unquote ceramic material, and they have some really neat colorways. So for those who don't know, the snorkel's a dive watch. Again, these are going to be quartz. I think my favorite is they have a sort of, I guess you'd call it like a tropical. It's like
Uh,
it's like a tropical dial. It's got like the brown ish
oh
dial,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
then
yeah.
and then
It's
the
yeah,
case
it's
is
the sea turtle, the sea
yeah.
turtle one.
See,
Yeah,
yeah, they all have their own snarky names that are neat and cute, but I'm not gonna. At least the moon swatch having the names of the planets, they made sense to the colors and all that. And listen, we all know the names of the planets, so that's easy to go with. Having cute little names for every single watch release, not necessary.
and they did it first, all right. Like,
I'm
but I
just
mean,
saying, but yeah, it's the one.
yeah,
It's,
for
it's called
sure.
the sea turtle. It's got a sort of that brownish tropical look to it, and it's got a very neat sort of aqua case.
Yeah, it's like a minty, like sea foamy color. It looks good, man. I look, I don't dislike any of these, to be honest with you. And this is one of those watches that like you're walking by the mall and you're like, 350 bucks, whatever. Like I'll probably buy one. The Blue Tang is probably my favorite, which is the one for those of you who don't know what a Blue Tang is. It's the watch or it's the watch. It's the fish Dory from Finding Nemo. And coincidentally, they also have a clownfish version. So you got the Dory and Nemo, which is probably a better name for those watches. And then
Yeah.
you have another one that is the great white shark. So you got sea turtle, blue tang, clownfish, and great white shark.
Do you know what color that dial is? It's white.
No, no one would have ever guessed that. But they're cool, man. I really want to see one of these in person. From the single review that's on the Bulova website right now about the watch, it says that that there should be no concerns about the fragility of the hybrid ceramic case. The guy says it comes across as much more substantial than the competition in air quotes. So this sounds like somebody that actually knows watches. The case is a similar dimension to the stainless steel version, 20 mil lugs instead of 19. So there's actually strap interchangeability here. And he said the watch has been extremely nice to wear. So 5-star rating. So we'll see. And that was posted as of 4 days ago, which
Yeah,
is kind of interesting.
does he know
So
about the Res KX?
the Res KX, baby. I mean, that was that
Again,
around the same price? No, it was much
no,
cheaper,
this
right?
is way cheaper. That thing was like $180 or something like that.
Good old conversion rates.
Oh, bring
And it
that
was
here. Bring
automatic.
that here, though. Bring that here. What are you
Oh my
doing?
God. But they would charge $500 for it. You
I'll
know
meet
they
in the.
would.
I'll meet in the middle. I'll meet in the middle. 225.
225. It sounds like a fair
225.
price. But yeah, well, is there any one of these that's your favorite? Is it the sea
I
turtle?
think it's the sea turtle. I think it's just
Yeah,
the color combination is really neat. The others are good. I don't dislike them. I just it's a little less loud than the others,
yeah, yeah,
but I don't think you can go wrong with any of them. Really, they're all very nice. I
yeah.
think this will be. I think this will be a hit with even like the both the watch folks and the non-watch folks, which I think they're
And
probably
that's
going
what I'm
for.
saying. Like this is a watch like you just walk by the mall and you're like, oh, that's fun, and you just need a watch and this is it. You know what I mean? Or this is a great watch to buy your son or to buy a friend that's getting into watches and it's not going to break the bank, right? This is kind of that type of watch to me, and I think it's a cool funky design. It's retro, it's funky. It's also a cool watch that maybe you could buy a partner or spouse. Like your wife is kind of like, oh, I kind of want the idea of a watch, and you're not going to shell out a lot of money yet because she's not into it yet. This might be a cool.
You're not trying to get Miss Piggy.
Stop. We already talked about that last week. Like
I'm
I
not trying to
thought it
get
was such a cool
so,
thing until you're
so
like, you're comparing me to Miss Piggy, and I'm like, oh God, I totally
somebody
oversaw that.
wrote to me and they go, dude, spot on. They go, I would be living in the basement.
And what's worse is me as a typical man brain, like I totally didn't even make that connection, which means somebody in Oris's marketing department and product development department also did not think that through either. So yeah, there you go. That's like Jesus. How many desks did this have to go through for someone to rubber stamp this? Like, yeah, this is a solid idea. We had a Kermit. Why not have a Miss Piggy?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for Gonzo now that you mention it though.
Yes, we need cuts.
But yeah, now these are cool. And like you said, I always try to keep an eye out for watches that I would buy for sort of friends, sort of like people who are on the fence or people who have shown an interest, but they didn't really want to take the leap yet, or they still think 350 is a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, still, it is.
No, it
Three hundred
is,
fifty
but
dollars is a lot of money.
but,
Like,
but as a hobbyist, you're like, drop of the bucket. You know what I mean?
I know that's the big problem, right? That's the
It
little
is
lies we
that
tell
that's a
ourselves.
whole other issue. You know, that's probably for another day or therapy session or something. But for most, like you again, we go out, we'll go out to dinner and you get in under $200. You're like, that's not bad, man. I got in under like like price of a shitter. That's good. I feel
Yeah,
good about
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But I think that's part of the disease at the end of the day.
Part of the sickness. Yes, I know. It's
Yeah, but I always keep an eye out for things like this that I could maybe purchase for someone, or I can make a recommendation. I get a lot of people, in my private life who will be like, "Hey, been thinking about a watch," or they'll send me, like an MVMT or something, and I'm like, there's a lot that look like this. Let's look at some alternatives.
yeah.
So
I
that
want you to go to a place where you're not going to get laughed at. So let's reevaluate here.
right, and I don't want this to end up in the dumpster in a year and a half.
Yeah, exactly.
So
My
we'll get you
buddy sold me
something you
this
can be
watch.
proud of, something that you could beat on, something that'll hold up. So I think this would make a good one, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and it was funny actually. The friend of mine who I work with, who I gifted that PRX to,
Hmm.
his sister lives down south, and he was visiting her, and they went out to dinner with somebody in her in laws' family, and they stopped and they say, "Hey, is that a PRX?" And he's like, "I guess." Like he's not into it, he just knows I got it for him and it's cool. And he's like, "Yeah, yeah." And they're like, "That's a nice watch." And it turns out they're in jewelry, like they're in
Oh, I
biz
see.
a little
Okay.
bit. And so
Yeah, yeah,
he's like, "Dude," he's like, "that was a cool feeling." I'm like, "Yeah, isn't that neat?" Like that's
yeah. It's like I told you I didn't get you a shitty watch.
yeah. I was like, "Dude, I took care of you, and I can't risk my reputation buying you some garbage."
Yeah, exactly.
But that's nice, to be able
It is
to.
a nice feeling. It is a nice feeling when somebody knows exactly what you have on. You know that that's a person that knows or is in the know. That is a very very cool feeling. It's only happened to me one time before. I was walking through an airport wearing my Ploprof, and some guy was like, "Dude, nice Ploprof." Like it just like one of those like completely like random things. It just, but it makes you feel good for like that hot second because someone's like somebody knows. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's cool. It's a good feeling
Yeah, and for somebody who's not really in it, they probably feel like $1,000,000. So at least they know that you put them onto something cool. You didn't buy them something that was kind of, it wasn't cheap. It wasn't like oh man, I don't know if I'm gonna get laughed at or not. So I don't know, but it's always something good to keep in your back pocket. The list of like watches I would gift people.
for sure. For sure.
Okay, next we have yet another iteration of the Black Bay chronograph. This time in flamingo blue, which for all of us out there know there are no blue flamingos. There have been many a prank where people have tried to convince people that there were blue flamingos. There was a good one actually. I actually found on the webs where one of the zoos mocked up a blue flamingo and put it like photoshopped it in with the other ones at the zoo, and people were like, "I told you it was real," and they're like, "No, no, it was a joke," which is pretty damn funny.
Oh man.
But flamingo blue is it's like a sister shade of Tiffany or all these other sort of pastel blues that we've seen and had rammed down our throats for the past 3 years. It's not a bad shade. It's just something we've definitely seen as of late. It looks okay. I don't think it's a bad looking watch. It's just that it's something sort of it's come along and you're like, we're a little late to the party. It's not that it's ugly or bad. I just don't know. Like, especially because we've already got a pink one. And like, I get it. You're doing the whole Miami thing. Beckham hangs out in Miami. He's part of the Miami Soccer Club. Miami Soccer Club's colors are pink.
Yeah,
You're
and
doing the
in
Miami
Miami,
Vice thing.
yeah,
I
Miami's
get
pink
it.
and blue. But the big thing for me, like the whole big thing for me, is that they're calling it flamingo blue. Like you're right, it's not a bad looking watch. I like the watch. I think it's cool. I would wear one if I had the opportunity to buy one. But they're going to be more limited in release, not limited edition, not numbered edition, but more difficult to come by. I don't think that they're boutique edition either. So just, more difficult to obtain, like the pink one. But flamingos aren't blue. Why not just call it Miami blue? I mean, this is, or you could have called it Vice blue. You know what I mean?
Well, that's a good name.
Like, why flamingo? Even their marketing on Instagram was like, we know flamingos aren't blue, but we decided to call it blue anyway. I'm like, that sounds dumb. Like, what 18-year-old intern did you pay to come up with this copy? You know what I mean? So there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's a cool watch. I think, everyone's going to go hyping about it and it's going to be fun and cool. And if you have a good connection with your AD, you'll probably get one. But it's one of those things that like, I just wish it would have made more sense in the nomenclature. But Vice Blue could have been cool. Miami Blue could have been cool. They could have called it Tubbs. Like I don't know. Like you know what I mean? Like there's so many other names that would have made a little bit more sense than Flamingo Blue.
Yeah, I tried to look if this was like a thing or like some like Pantone swatch that I've never heard of, and I didn't really find much on it. I mean, I found like there's like some sort of a cultural thing about blue flamingos, but they're certainly not this color. They're more of almost like a lilac, to be honest. Like all like the little stupid tchotchkes and things I find with the blue on it. It was just weird. I didn't want to, throw it right under the bus without giving it a shot here, but I just don't see a lot about it. I don't really know where it stems from. So it is what it is. Like, I guess it's just sort of a silly marketing thing. Like, there are no blue flamingos, so let's roll with it type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but that just seems kind of weird. Like
Agreed.
it just seems odd and kind of like it told you off air. It's kind of like, how you doing, fellow kids? Like it just seems kind of like, old guy trying to hang out in a young audience. You know what I mean? Like it just seems a little bit misplaced.
I did see one particular bright individual who postured the question if flamingos are often colored because of their diets, if you could turn
Correct.
one blue. If you could turn one blue
Like a rose.
by feeding it blue things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
It was like,
maybe. I mean,
okay, you win for today. Thank you for
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Thank you for the internet. I mean, I think it's cool. I mean, I'm curious to see what the exact shade of blue looks like in person.
Yeah, that's another tough thing about these sort of coral shades is that they're always different. Like they
Yeah.
all kind of look alike on paper, but in person they're way, way different. So I'm curious to see if this is, a little more pale, a little more pastel.
I think it's gonna be a little bit more pastel than people are imagining it to be. Because like, when I look at the photo of David Beckham and like the marketing and everything like that, it looks very Vice blue.
Yeah.
But when I look at the actual picture, it looks almost like a light aqua, like on their actual
Right.
product
That's kind of
page.
the vibe I got because when I saw it first, and please, companies, stop doing this. Stop doing this as your marketing. I'm tired of it. It's played out at this point. It's old, and we know it's staged. They'll find one of the like their marketing figureheads, their influencers, whatever. Like they have this guy Jay Chu or whatever, and they're like, Jay Chu spotted in what could be a new tutor, and it's like, yeah, but you guys are putting it out, and he's wearing the same color shirt, so yes, it is, and it matches the watch. We get it. But in that photo, he's wearing a very pale shade
Yeah. I
sweatshirt.
mean, I can't hate because like my favorite brand Omega does this too with Daniel Craig and stuff like that.
I know, but it's so like
I know, but like the weird thing is like the brand never directly posts it, right? Like Tudor posted the J Chew
well, that's what I
spot.
mean. It's
Yeah, like it
just
just
it's like
seems
fake.
weird.
It's like those videos where like, oh, happened to run into so and so, and they're like, hey, dude, and they have this whole like long drawn out interaction. You're like, no, this is an ad. This is marketing. You did not just happen to run into this one person in all of New York City where there's a bajillion people and you're not looking at any of them. Oh yeah,
And then they invite you
casual
to their
encounter.
apartment and ask, and you know how much money they make?
And
Yes. Yeah.
let's talk about the product you have in your hand. Coincidentally, like okay, all right, sure. But I'm not a big fan of that sort of happenstance marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah.
Like, listen,
it was cool the first few
in the early stages of social media, it was almost like you had to go along with it because there was nothing to put it up against. But now you're like, oh, this has happened so many times. This cannot be a coincidence anymore.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But I mean, it's just where we are at now. It's almost like a, forced guerrilla marketing, you know what I mean? Like it's I don't know.
Well, TikTok's banned now, so half you clowns are out the door. I don't have to look at you anymore.
Yeah, but it's back up, so we'll see. It'll never be permanently banned, I don't think. So we'll see. Whatever. But
Yeah.
speaking of Tudor,
Yes.
did you see what I saw that I sent you about the boxes?
Oh yeah, that's terrible.
It's terrible.
I almost thought that was a fake.
No, and apparently I see he posted like another message to it and was like, yeah, like somebody sent in like a message about like how they had a box that was missing both like the D and the O or something like it was completely gone. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that. And for those who don't know, somebody posted a Tudor box, and it's like the text is like way misaligned left from like the logo, and they're like, "Is this normal?" And people have chimed in, they're like, "Yeah, no, they're just horribly QC'd."
That's terrible.
Especially for like now that the prices just keep coming up. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about almost $5,000 for some of these watches. So yeah, that's not ideal.
No,
not ideal.
I mean, imagine trying to resell that, and people were like, "Are you out of your goddamn mind?"
I didn't even think about that, dude. You're like, this is totally a legitimate Tudor. It's not a fake at all.
Like at that point, I'm probably going on eBay and buying a used one that somebody had and is just getting rid of because I'm
Oh
like,
my
there's no way
God.
anybody's gonna buy this
I
off me.
really didn't even think about that
Yeah,
until
it's
you
terrible.
said it. Imagine trying to resell that. Like, yeah, and then you had to explain to somebody why your box is all like not awesome. Interesting,
Yeah.
interesting, interesting. Huh.
Yeah. All right. And today is sort of a piggyback off of last week, a tiny bit, right? Last week we talked about the Timex 8 lap. You know, we were both pretty into it. It's sort of a neo grandpa watch almost, as someone put it. And I've seen this term get thrown around lately. It's a geezer watch. And I'm starting to
You
think,
young kids in your terms.
yeah, I'm starting to think, is the geezer watch a thing? And so I started to kind of let that marinate in the old brain. And I was sort of harping on geezer watches, and I was like, okay, I could see this becoming a thing, right?
Yeah.
I like it. So, you know, with the 8 lap coming out, I started thinking about sort of the geezer watch revolution, and it's not so far fetched. I think there's been sort of a renaissance, not even just lately, just in recent years. And I was thinking about, is this a thing? Because you have, I don't know if you've heard of, you know, there's a lot of fun trends like this. You know, there's the rat boyfriend. You've heard of that one?
No.
No, you haven't heard of it. So
This is that New York City bubble nonsense that I guess
it is. You know,
exists.
we're sort of like this big hub here, but there's this popular trend going around where like chicks like to date dudes who look like rats, like that. A lot of them are actors, like that Barry Coogan guy, right? Looks kind of like a rat, but women find him attractive. Right, kind of like Timothy Chalamet, kind of same thing. They're like
Oh my
chicks
God.
are into
Like
these like ratty. I'm serious. Google
you
this.
mean like
Google rat
mousy
boyfriend. It's a
looking
thing.
guys is what you're saying, right? Like,
Yes, they look like, you know, they could be like a villain in a Ninja Turtles movie or something.
oh my God.
So this has become a trend, and so that's why I'm like,
Oh
oh,
my God.
like
There's literally a rat boy summer. Like, Jesus.
I would not lie to you. All right.
See, this is exactly why TikTok does need to die.
Because how do you think I found out about it?
Oh my gosh.
Anyways, that's a rabbit hole
Just
for the rest of you to dig down. It's
just send it into the sun, please.
exactly.
Just send
It's
it to the
something that
sun.
future civilizations will find here and be like, no, it's good that they're extinct.
Oh my
But
gosh.
anyways, so I think, you know, I think Geezer Watch could hold its weight here. So I started thinking about, you know, some of my favorite contemporary Geezer watches, and you know, there's certainly, they've brought back enough of them. I mean, you know, neo vintage is all the rage. We've seen a lot of classic reissues. I mean, especially with things like the Vulcan Cricket, right? With the sort of defunct alarm on it, which is
Yeah.
nothing really says geezer more than that. That although practical, and you can still use it, right? A watch that they've been giving to presidents for a long time and such, and again, that you could set an analog alarm on. Yeah, I would say that's pretty geezery. But you're seeing it. I mean, even we see plenty of stone dials come out lately. That's plenty
Yeah.
geezerish. Even though I enjoy it, I'm not knocking it. I'm down with it. I dig it. And I mean, you know, Bulova put out just some TV dial stone dial recently, which is double geezer for me. Right? Not only are you getting geezer
Double
case, you're getting geezer case, but you're also getting geezer dial, which I'm
Bro,
here.
are we part of the problem?
No, this is what makes the hobby fun. If you don't have fun,
Are we part
it
of the
just
problem?
sucks. And then you go read the blog and you're like, I hate this hobby. What am I doing here?
Please kill me now. I want to die.
You know, and then I started reflecting. I myself have gone into the geezer end of the pool. I mean, I think the Arnie's a geezer watch. I think it's a perfect geezer watch. It's huge. It's easy to read. It has a digital on it just in case the eyes have gone that you can't even see the markers anymore. Right? It's got the pushers are huge. They're easy to operate. The strap is gigantic.
I mean, you're literally talking, and you know what? It's quartz. So when you get to the point where you no longer can be mobile,
Right. And
you
the
don't need
newer
to worry
one's
about the
solar
mechanical
quartz.
watch.
You just sit near the window. You're fine.
Sitting in the window. It's such a sad existence. Is that what we're all going to be wearing? We're just going to be at the nursing home chilling out with our Arnie's on and just be like, when I was younger, I used to wear a mechanical watch. Sure thing, Grandpa. Let's get you back
Yeah,
inside.
I can't wind those movement no more, so I got my solar on.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's gonna be me. And then it also functions as a
It's the jitterbug of watches.
it also functions as a
Jitterbug.
nightlight, which is nice. If you've ever worn
Oh,
one inside to out, like
that's true. Seiko still does have the goat loom, so it's like yeah,
yeah,
that loom bright be everything.
but although it is a little bit big, but you know what? I've seen, I've seen it go both ways. I've seen the older folks roll with like the Timex camper, where you're
Yeah,
like old field watch, and then I've seen where they wear something honking big because they're like, I can read it, it's all good. So I could see where that comes into play.
yeah.
Now, the reason I bring this up is not because it's funny to say geezer or because I want to talk about old vintage styling any more than we already do. This is sort of a culmination of points from many episodes that we've done about the industry as a whole and sort of where we're headed. Morgan Stanley recently put out a report talking about sort of the watch market, and it was kind of received hot and cold. But in short, they basically said that secondary specifically is like it's taking a big hit. A lot of the popular models, a lot of the popular brands, your Trinity, your Rolex, like big handfuls of their product line are no longer going above retail in the secondary, right? You're seeing some weird trends. So for the second straight, I'm sorry, let me reread that. Secondary watch prices have dropped for 11 straight quarters and continue to decline. The high-end brands like Rolex, Patek, AP continue to dominate, but are losing their market share down a few percent each year. Most brands saw price declines with only a few showing positive trends, and those are mostly in watches priced under $1,000. And I don't think it's a surprise. We talk a lot about the economics of watches and how they're expensive, especially to sort of the average folks who aren't in this hobby and aren't used to sort of that drop in the bucket mentality I was talking about before.
Yeah.
Times are tough for a lot of folks. I know they said recently that I think credit card defaults are at an all-time high, which is not great.
Yeah. Same thing with car loans and other things like that. It's not just credit cards. It's literally everything people are defaulting on.
And I think I've been sort of talking about it for a long time about how just the incomes and stuff, they don't really line up with a lot of these expensive hobbies. And so you can't really expect consumers at many of these levels to take part in such a big way, right? Like you can't expect these people to go after everything you put out. I mean, I think that's why you're seeing sort of the under 1,000 range get a little more love in that regard. But yeah, they don't predict secondary prices to do any better. They think they're going to keep falling in 2025 due to oversupply and cautious buyers. And I think we've all seen that. I think we've seen the plenty of stock, people still asking for high prices, nobody buying them, right? They're still there. They're still on the websites. They're still, and it's the same ones because you can always tell, like, they always have some distinct markings and stuff about them because they're old. But, I do think I've spoken before about consolidation. I think you're seeing that. And I also think you're going to see sort of a reversion to the mean stylistically here. And that's what I've been getting at with the sort of the geezer idea is that when you think about a watch, specifically something that an older person would wear, it's going to be a little more reserved, right? We're used to, up until up until probably 2020, we didn't see a ton of color variation, right? Green was a big deal,
not at all.
right? Green was big.
Green was huge. It was huge. It was like the first really mainstream color. And then you started seeing, reds and oranges and all these different types of colors coming in. Purple at one point too was kind of hot. Pink, right? So it's yeah. I mean, there was really no color. It was black, white, and blue. That was kind of the only thing on the market.
Yeah, and you have your silver tone, your gold tone, and stuff like that. But largely, I mean, it was a very sort of one side of the color palette that you were getting, and probably rightfully so. I mean, those colors match most wardrobes. They go with most attire. Like you could wear something in those color ranges to work, not have to worry about it being so loud. Especially, I don't know why watch nerds love to talk about black tie situations. Who the hell goes to so many black tie situations they have? They have to debate this on the internet, but I've seen it over and over again. Who would wear a dress watch with a tuxedo? It's like, dude, you're going to wear that tuxedo one time.
Me. I
throughout
would
the
totally
year.
wear a dress watch with a
Well,
tuxedo.
James Bond would, so kiss my ass. But
Exactly. Come at me, bro. Like, come at me.
but
Like,
like the fact that we have to sit around and argue about this on the internet is hysterical to me. But
based on the traditional style convention trends from 1897, you don't wear anything with a tuxedo. I'm like, yeah, because
that
they
does
didn't have
not
wristwatches.
slide under the cuff, right?
Yeah,
Like,
because wristwatches were not worn by men back then. So there you go.
so yeah, but I think you're going to see that. I do think we're going to see a little bit of consolidation. I mean, color is still prevalent. You're seeing. I don't think you're going to see it go away entirely,
No,
but
it just might become more muted for
I
sure.
think come Watches and Wonders, I think we are going to see maybe a reversion to that. It might be a little sterile. It might be sort of plain and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, this is an interesting phenomenon, and when you did this out to me as the idea for this week's topic, I was very intrigued because it was funny. I find myself kind of gravitating towards this idea of geezer watchdom, a lot more organically than even I had myself had even considered prior to this episode topic. And I kind of in my mind and thinking about it, came up with the idea in my head about the reasons why. And I kind of came up with three main reasons. First off is nostalgia, right? When you're thinking about these kind of like re-release pieces and things like that, we remember our grandfathers wearing them, our moms or dads, somebody that we loved and we care about. And it's a watch that is old and maybe worth something, maybe not, but it has some type of emotional connection. It's like last week's episode when I was talking about that Casio my father has been trying to hunt down,
Right.
or that I've been trying to hunt down for my dad, right? I was talking with him about it yesterday in kind of preparation for this episode. He's like, "Oh yeah, it was an old Casio." He's like, "I couldn't tell you which one it was, but it was definitely an old Casio." And he's like, "I really loved this like greenish turquoise bezel it had." And I was like, "Okay, like and now I definitely have to find this thing." But it was just like this one snapshot that I have of my father from many, many, many years ago, probably when he was about my age that I am now. And he had this watch, and that was his thing. So like I want to go find that because to me it's nostalgic, right? Whether I remember him wearing it every single day, which he did not, but it's just kind of a cool that this moment in time was captured, and this is the watch that he had on his wrist. So I think that that's kind of cool. The second thing I think is price, and this is kind of what you were alluding to, and I think this is attributed a lot to the younger generation and what they call dupe culture. Like we all want kind of the fancy things. We all want the things to be what they are, but a lot of times we can't get the brand new version of said thing. And so you start to see this climb of people purchasing older versions of said items or something that looks very similar to it, right? This whole idea of dupe culture. Well, I can't buy the Hermes Birkin, but I'm going to buy this brand that makes them out of Italy. They're hand stitched, all this stuff, and it's $1,500 versus 40,000 or whatever it could be, right? It's like, today, we were, or many, many episodes ago, we were talking about kind of the rise of Cartier, right? 5 years ago, if you were a watch enthusiast that was passionate about Cartier, that was kind of a laughing joke. Like nobody took you seriously. But now it's a very different thing that like most watch collectors will have a Santos of some type or a tank or whatever in their collection because it's become more popular. Well, not everyone can go into Cartier right now and spend $12,000 on the Cartier tank, but they can buy a must from the 80s at $1,500, $2,000. And that seems much more of a manageable thing, right? This whole idea of geezerdom is like searching for the old thing and kind of bringing it back because it's trendy and nostalgic and cool again. And the kind of last point I had about this was we're getting to that point where everyone has the same crap. And I think that people are desperately trying to cling now to some sense of individuality that it's almost returning the circle back, you know? And I know in my own personal life, I've been having this kind of debate with my collector friends. There's a buddy of mine that he and I go back and forth. And for some reason, we've just been climbing down this rabbit hole of late 80s, early 90s quartz Omegas. Like a watch that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have never even considered. But now maybe I will go on eBay and buy that $700 quartz two-tone Constellation GMT. Just because, why the hell not? It's priced well. It's cool. Nobody's going to have it. And I think it's cool. Like, why not? It's this weird phenomenon, but I think you can really attribute kind of this idea of geezer watch culture into kind of those three categories. It's the tradition, nostalgia, the price, the accessibility of it, and then ultimately being able to to return back to kind of what made collecting cool. It's like almost a reset. You know, back in the day, before the forums, before the blogs, like you just kind of had to find this stuff out on your own. And it feels like for me, that's kind of where we're headed for. At least that's my hope.
Rat boyfriend, geezer watch, dupe
Jesus.
culture. You're welcome. You're welcome, folks.
We just opened up like three Pandora's boxes, and people are just gonna be like, "What is all this?"
No, I do agree with you. I see it a lot, especially with even some of the younger folks I work with. They're getting back into like thrifting and stuff like that,
Yes, yes,
where they'll go and they and it used to be kind of a joke. It was kind of like a gimmick, like a stupid like Macklemore, I'm going to the thrift store type of thing.
yeah,
But like
yeah.
no, now like my buddy goes and he finds like these old like nice sweaters and stuff, and you're like it's kind of cool. Like granted, like yeah, that did belong to
But
somebody
that's an
else.
individual thing. Like that is a specific person who's making the conscientious effort to go and do and be unlike everyone else. Because everyone else is going to be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go to XYZ store, spend XYZ amount of money, and buy this overpriced sweater I'll wear one time and never wear again. And this guy's like, well, there's a lot of good classics out there. You can find at Goodwill. You can find at these other places that are thrifty places. And if you know what you're looking for, you can find something pretty cool. And it's funny that you mentioned about the thrifting because there's this guy I started following. I'm sure he's on TikTok and probably now banned, but I follow him on Instagram like every other good millennial. And he starts out his videos like, "What's up, dirtbags? Like, we're going thrifting." And like it's this dude who works out and then buys gym clothes at Goodwill. Like and I don't know why, but I want to watch his videos. And it's just fun. And then like occasionally like, he'll cook like a gym meal and like that's his kind of like his that's his whole world.
Huh.
Is working out and thrifting at Goodwill, finding some clothes, and then cooking the occasional meal. And I'm like, this is so interesting to me. I probably live a really sad life, but that's besides the point. I just find it interesting, but it's cool that that's kind of like a thing again. Like, you know, I used to do that in college and go thrifting and look for stuff, and now it seems like it's kind of coming back to that.
Yeah, but like you said, it does give you a sense of individuality. I mean, I know I go down the old vintage Seiko rabbit hole probably many too many times on the eBay and late at night, not sleeping, and I know at least, there are resources out there where you can reach out to people. I've had, Nick from DC Vintage on enough times where he said, he's like, if anybody ever has a question about the like validity of a model or something, because there's plenty of weird combinations of stuff. Like we know back in the day, they used to just slap anything together from porcelain
Whatever they
lying
wanted, and
around.
they're
Yeah.
like, "Ah, we'll make 50 of them."
Right.
Screw.
So he's like, oh, hit me up and I could try to, do the digging for you if you really need it. Like that's cool. And because you
Yeah,
can do that with old watches specifically, like you'll come across when you're like, was this a real model or did somebody franken this? Because like if
yeah,
it's
yeah,
real,
yeah,
like that's kind of tight. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So that's my favorite part of doing that type of stuff.
It's a diamond in the rough stuff that you're like, am I the only one that knows about this? It's like
Right.
how we felt when we got the Res KX. We're like, we are the only two Americans with this watch. You know what I mean? Like it felt kind of cool because we were in on the secret that
Right.
nobody else knew. You
That's
know?
neat, but that's also what I always, always, always harp on is the most fun about this is when you run
Yes.
into people and they pull out a watch roll and it's not just and not to knock any of these, but it's not just Submariner, Speedmaster, the kind of the you're going down the list here, whatever it might be.
Yeah. I got a
Jamester,
5711 Nautilus, a blue Royal Oak. You know, like
whatever. Even if it's an SKX, like it's not. It's you're like I've seen enough of these in my lifetime to never see it again. It's fine.
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But when they pull something out that's strange or just unfamiliar, you're like, all right, hold on, let's take a moment here. Let me reevaluate my life choices, and all of a sudden, you're down your own rabbit hole. So
Yeah.
that to me has always been the most fun. And like you said, even with something like a must, like it's cool. We always talk about like a lot of the '80s like tag Heuers and stuff that were sort of underappreciated. For me, that's like where the most fun is to be had because again, if you find one that you really like, and hopefully it's in some really nice condition, like they're not making any more of those.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, how else did we get a Formula One reissue? Right? You want to talk about a geezer watch?
Yeah, oh, that's a great one.
I mean, like literally Tag relaunched a Quartz Formula One last year that everyone loves. It sold out. It went crazy and everyone was hyping about it. That's a geezer watch. 10 years ago, that was a laughing stock watch. You're like, what are you going to do with this old Formula One that the strap doesn't fit anymore because everyone cut it to size, right? Like that was a thing. But those old things are becoming cool again. And it's cool whether you have the brand new version or you have the old version. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of this interesting thing. But it's I don't know. I'm excited for it, but I'm nervous, as you mentioned earlier, that we might be still going for kind of that stagnation where the brands are gonna be like, all right, guys, we've done the crazy, we've done the cool.
Let's give him the boring.
Let's give them the grandpa boring, kind of Mr. Rogers treatment. We're going to put the same red sweater on every single day, and that's what you're going to get for the next 5 years.
But I mean, the only saving grace is that if they're going to do that, then I hope they're really, really, really going to work on the specs, right? We always say, oh man, if this was a little thinner, if this was a hair this way, that way, otherwise, I really hope that, okay, if you're going to give me conservative, now I really want you to work on that design. I want this to be the most comfortable watch I've ever worn. I want it to be light. I want it to be, easy to just throw on and go. Like it's okay to do stylistically boring, but also,
It better be technologically impressive.
yeah. And even if it's not the most technological watch on the market, give me the best bracelet you can give me.
Well,
Right? Give
that's
me
what I mean. I mean, that's still for me technology, right? Like, when you're able to do a quick change bracelet with a micro adjustment clasp that's 2 millimeters thick or whatever, and it has a on the fly adjustment, like that is a technological change,
right.
right? That is something that is superior. When you can do a new movement design or a new in-house caliber or ultra slim case, whatever it could be, that's an improvement on the past, right? So let me ask you this, with that kind of understanding in your mind, do you think we're going back to the 80s, 90s? Like we're going to go super thin dress watch? I know we kind of talked about this before, but do you think that that's kind of where we're headed? Are we moving away from the sports watch culture?
I think so because I think we've already seen 70s. So I think we're due. I think we're due to come back around on 80s, 90s. Right?
We're going to be wearing Piaget polos again?
We've had 60s, 70s shoved down our throats for 10 years now.
Yeah.
I think it's time for 80s, 90s. And then we'll just go right back to divers.
Everyone's just be like, I'll never die, but this watch is sick. Yeah, I mean, I do know. I have way too many divers to admit.
Yep.
Only a few of them have ever been diving. But no, I want to say that I tentatively agree with you. I should say I cautiously agree with you because I think it would be interesting enough. If you're going to return to conservative, it better be cool conservative, right?
Which is doable.
And I'm not talking about like political conservative, just like conservative in styling and things like that, right? If you're going to return to that, it's got to be cool. Like I want to see more of the funky 80s and 90s kind of like conservative, like power Wall Street watch. You know what I mean? Like I think that is something that we have been missing for a long time. Because let's be honest, I can't tell you how many guys were like uber rich back then that I've met, many, many, many years later when they came into my watch store back in the day and they're like, this watch is way too thick. Who the hell wears this? I'm like, well, this is like one of the most popular watches. Like, no, 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 no. Wear your ultra thin E-bells. You're like, what are you talking about, man? And like,
where is your PSJ section?
Yeah, exactly. Like this was like the most amazing watch of its day. And you're like, that was the heat, that was the hitter. And I was like, everyone knew you arrived when you had a lapis lazuli quartz E-bell. Like just like the weirdest things, Yeah, it's just like I don't know. I would be very excited to see if that's our future. I don't think it will be because I think, today you have so much more dependence for collectors on mechanical movements, but it would be really interesting to see how the brands can adopt that style change.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting, but I'm curious to see if that holds true or not. So
If that's
we'll
the
see.
case,
We'll see in a couple months.
some brands will be in trouble if that's the case because all they do is sports watches. So we'll see.
Yeah, we will. We will. All right, sir. On that note, I'll leave everybody with their plenty of rabbit holes to go down culturally. Good luck. Sorry to bring that upon you. Hope you come back next week.
If you come back, share your research.
Yeah.
We're curious what you think.
Send us your geezer watch.
Right? Send us your geezer watch. Yeah, snapshot to geezer watch for sure.
Yeah. Geezin and wrist cheesin. So
Geezin and wrist cheesin. I like that. I like that. That's cool. That's cool. I like that.
So yeah, we'll catch you all next week. Schmitty, be good. Yeah.
Take care, everybody.
Later.
Later.